Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront. This is episode number 479 of the world's most dangerous podcast, where we discuss the Cincinnati Reds and occasionally Elmer Descends. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week, your friend and mine, the inimitable Nate Dotson. How are you, Nate?
Listen, it's my favorite day of the week. The boys are around. We're talking baseball. The vibes are still pretty good after a annoying series, but I'm great, man. Excited to be here. I'm enjoying Reds baseball. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. Not a bad week for the old Red Legs. We'll dive into all the minutia along the way. Before we go any further, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. That's all I'm going to say there, except I do have a little bit of news that I wanted to go ahead and kind of break here on the show quickly. Nate, you may not know this, but once upon a time, I shaved. No, that's not what I was going to say. If you're not watching on YouTube, ignore that. I'm clean shaven. I look fantastic. Some time ago, I co-authored a book about the Cincinnati Reds. Do you remember what the name of that book was by any chance?
I can't say it with quite the inflection that you do, but The Big 50.
The Big 50. The men and moments that made the Cincinnati Reds. My buddy Chris Garber and I co-authored that. Well, we're here to announce it live to the world that we just brokered a deal for a second edition.
Woo!
A second edition of the Big 50 will be on bookshelves forevermore. Hopefully, it's
boys are back in town. The boys
exactly.
Are back in town. Some have said that the first edition was amongst the top 37 Reds books released in the last decade.
Clearly, I think. I don't think I'm bragging too much to say that. It's a top 40 Reds book. No, it was a fun book to write, and it was fun to market it and sign books and meet all the people and all that. And so we're going to do it again. But the format's going to be the same. We're going to add some chapters, and it's going to be in a format essentially that we can. It won't go out of print ever again, hopefully. And I won't get into the details of that, but I'm excited. Now I got to figure out the what 3 to 5 things happened in the last 4 years of the Reds that we can update the Big 50. Were there any of the top 50 moments in Reds history over the last 4 years?
The way things have gone, I feel like the Matt McLain call-up would be worth a chapter.
Maybe. There actually are 2 that we've discussed and we're trying to figure out the others, but they're not all going to be from recent times. But there's a couple of recent things to mention. But anyway, I just wanted to. Really was gratified by the reception the first time around, and so we're gonna get the band back together and do it again, and it'll be out next year. So then you're going to hear me talk about it all the time. So sorry about that. Let's talk about the week that was, Nate. The week that was, your Cincinnati Reds, by the way, are 19-24 after a 3-3 week. They are 5 games out of first place in the National League Central, and they are tied for third place in the Central. Not in last place again. We did it again. It's so exciting.
Do we get a parade for that? Can we start hang a banner?
Oh, every week they're not in last place.
Yeah, all joking aside, I don't think a single expert would have predicted the Reds to be anywhere near third place in the division at this time in the year. We are over halfway through May. The boys are playing spirited ball. They're playing hard. They're fighting every day. We're getting the result we want slightly less than half the time, but that's better than we expected. I'm still having fun.
Yeah, and this is a measure of how far my expectations have fallen. But the 1-run losses, at least they're competitive. If they're just competitive, I'm okay. I've been saying that all year. But seriously, a big part of this, obviously, is the fact that the National League Central is a steaming pile of repugnant garbage. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. So that's why the Reds are only 5 games out. But listen, this time last year, the Reds were 14.5 games out after this exact number of games. They played 44 games, 43 games at this point. The Reds were 14.5 out and never got closer than 12 games out the rest of the season, and they finished the year 31 games out. So, hey, look, progress, that's all we can ask. So the Reds won 2 of 3 down in Miami and accepted their winnings in Bitcoin, I believe. I think I saw that. And then go to Colorado, lose 2 out of 3, should have been able to win 2 out of 3. We'll talk a little maybe about that rubber match, but we got to see Brandon Williamson's debut, which went way different than everyone expected. And so, again, 3-3 on the week. They're holding serve, I guess. But a 3-3 road trip, that's not bad. I don't care who you're playing. For this team, that's not that bad.
No, it's not bad at all. The Reds have, for whatever reason, just been historically abysmal in Colorado. I think they have the worst record of any team in Major League Baseball in Colorado over the last however many years, maybe since Colorado became a thing in baseball. It's been a state for a long time. But there's a lot of good things in that series, and most series we can take away from. Jake Fraley was just raking. He's officially raked Fraley once again when he had a tough little stretch there. Our boy Nick Senzel still doing it.
Yes.
Still doing it. We can talk a little more about him later if you want to. I can talk about it all night. And yeah, the starting pitching, the heart and soul of this team, what we all knew was going to have to carry them to relevancy. Well, it hasn't.
It hasn't.
This has been the weirdest thing about that season is they've been playing a better brand of baseball in spite of their starting pitchers. So I don't know where you want to start with getting into the minutia of this series, but
well, I think the first thing I'll go ahead and dive into the Jake Fraley piece, because Jake Fraley, 27 years old. Hopefully this will be his first real full year as a big leaguer, and the dude's just been good. I mean, he leads the team in runs batted in, tied for the team lead in home runs, 5 home runs, 29 RSBI, 276 average, 375 on base, 448 slugging. So all really good numbers, not superstar numbers by any stretch of the imagination, but really good numbers. But I saw a piece over at Fangraphs today, and I think Dwight Kelly in our Slack chat tossed it out there. And I thought it was fascinating. And it's about a stat called WPA, win probability added. If you're a student of constitutional law at a law school somewhere, you may think something different of WPA. But win probability added. And it's essentially, if you do something that put your team closer to winning, on a better path to victory, this is the dumbed down version of it, then your WPA goes up. And essentially, who helps their team to victory or helps the team get closer to victory the most? That seems like a pretty good way to determine who's a valuable player. And yes, for the last couple of years, I think the AL and NL leaders in WPA have been Shohei Ohtani, the Paul Goldschmidt last year, the MVPs. The year before it was Aaron Judge, maybe. I don't know. I know that this is
the usual suspects.
The usual suspects, the great players. Well, anyway, this year up there with everyone else is Jake Fraley. he's one of the leaders in WPA in the majors, and it's essentially they broke it down. It's not, but it's because he's consistently come through in every big moment. Clutch is the way we would talk about that in the past. Now there's no clutch gene. I don't think. I've argued with some people about this over the years, but he's never been particularly clutch by the stat in the past. But this year so far, this is the reason why his numbers are good, but not great. But why they seem so much better for us, every time they need a big hit, it seems like he's at the plate and he comes through. So I'm all in on Jake Fraley, just being this guy here, a solidly above average player, been decent defensively as well. So anyway, I don't know if you have any other thoughts about Jake Fraley, but I did want to mention that he's been very, very clutch.
Yeah, he passes the eye test, a little bit streaky, like I mentioned, but that's the nature of the game. I will throw out that who's number 2 on the Reds in win probability added, which is a word I hope I don't have to say too many times because I'm struggling with it.
I don't know.
Nick Senzel.
No, I started to guess that, but I thought it couldn't be. I couldn't be that happy. Nick Senzel,
just ahead of TJ Friedel. Listen, let's just spend a minute talking about our boy. I think that we were all really concerned that this is just another flash in the pan, and there is still time for that theory to play out.
True,
but in the meantime, you no longer have to set the slider to a certain point in the season to see that he's having a good season. You don't say, oh, if he didn't have that slow start, if you take out this one series here and there. No, on the season, Nick Senzel has a 107 OPS plus. He is a decent day at the plate away from an 800 OPS. That 274 batting average is nice. And then all the while playing elite Gold Glove caliber defense at third base, making the hard plays look easy. We have no way to know if this is real, but let's enjoy that ride.
Without question. That you mentioned something that I was going to make sure to point out. He's probably the only guy on the team that has been consistently good defensively on that infield. I mean, he really has looked like he's been playing third base his whole life. And, well, he had been playing it a lot until the last couple of years. No, yeah, again, we're still talking about, 30 games that he's played. 100, approximately 120 plate appearances. So small sample size, but he is regularly having good at bats. He's hitting line drives. He's been an above average bat and an above average defender. And yes, he's 28. He's not a kid anymore, but it's been exciting to see, and no signs really of it slowing down. So I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, it was nice that the Reds decided to also bring him up to make his MLB debut. We talk about service time manipulation all the time, and it's great. It's heralded prospect. Gets to come up, gets to play in front of the Cincinnati fans. I feel like we're all seeing Nick Senzel for the first time.
Yeah, really. It seems like it. Yeah. Finally, the big prospect has arrived.
Here's a question for you. If hindsight's 2020, and it really was always going to take Nick Senzel this long to figure things out at the major league level, was the extra year of service time kind of a good thing?
It might end up being. It might be the only time that he is actually productive while in a Reds uniform is at the tail end of that. Fascinating. Let's talk about an actual prospect. Actually, let's talk about an actual younger player that was called up this week. Brandon Williamson. I just want to touch on him before we start getting into the big three and some of the other things of the week, and the biggest news of the week, which is the other prospect that was called up. But again, I'm burying the lead a little bit here. Brandon Williamson was called up for one reason, and one reason only. He was called up because Nick Krall forgot to have pitchers on his roster this year. The Reds started with 3 starting pitchers that are, capable starting pitchers, and literally no one else ready at the major league level. Somebody argued with me that Luke Weaver's a starting pitcher, and well, yeah, I guess he's technically, that's what it says on his baseball card. But come on,
As friend of the show, Jeff Carr says that we're locked on the Reds. He wasn't good enough for the Royals.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just, so let's not pretend. And so then Nick Lodolo ends up going on the injured list. We'll discuss that more in just a moment when we get back to our regular weekly update on the big three. But so now you need somebody, and they have to call up Brandon Williamson. Now, why is that a big deal? Brandon Williamson, is supposed to have been, he was right until the very last week of spring training. He was, in the mix for that that one of those 4th or 5th starter roles. Well, because in AAA this year, he's 2-4 with a 6.62 ERA, and that earned him a start in the big leagues, which happened this week. And as predicted, Reds beat the Rockies 3-1. He goes 5 2/3, gives up 1 run on 2 hits, strikes out 6, and walks 2 batters, and looked really good doing it in Colorado of all places. Nate, is that going to be the biggest surprise of the season by the time the year's over?
I think it's got to be. The Twitter webs were on fire with everyone's opinions about how disastrous this was going to go. How do you bring up a guy who has been struggling mightily outside of his last couple starts on AAA, which weren't amazing, but they were adequate, to make his MLB debut in Colorado, where pitchers just hate to pitch. And sure enough, man, the guy goes out there. Control has been his issue. Let's get that out of the way. The reason he struggled so much in spring training and so far in Louisville was because he can't hit the strike zone. He's walking over a batter an inning. Like it's wild. But those troubles were gone on Tuesday. He was just peppering the corner of the zone. He was locating like that's his biggest skill, which it kind of was before he fell off the wagon once he got to Cincinnati. So I am not going to read too much into it because it's Colorado and weird stuff happens. But if he's somehow figured out that control problem, the future gets a lot brighter for the Reds.
Well, I'll say this, I'll use a phrase that I commonly use about the team, which is a team is never as good as they look at their best and never as bad as they look at their worst. And he's always been better than we saw him all season long this year. So there's something up. So there's something there. On the other hand, I don't expect this same output from him every start. But yes, if he can make progress, still a young guy. If he can make progress, and 25 years old, so he's got some learning to do. I don't know if you wanted to do that learning at the big league level. He may be forced to, but he showed it in his first start that, again, we're not talking about, they weren't playing against, the Dodgers or the Tampa Bay Rays. But on the other hand, as we always say, those batters on the Rockies drive Cadillacs too. They get paid to play the game, and he looked magical. And I love every time one of these rookies comes up, because I love the Jim Day interview with the families. It's always to see their joy. This was a good one. The mom couldn't find a scorecard. She wanted to have a scorecard for her son's first game, and Jim Day went and found one. But anyway, congratulations, Brandon Williamson. Glad to have you. And I hope you continue.
I wonder if I could ever slip Jim Day some money and get him to come interview my parents during a game. I feel like I've really let mom and dad down.
Well, you should have heard some of the things they said at the high school games when you were playing. I don't think you want that to be broadcast nationally. No. All right. So we've danced around it. We have to talk about the single biggest news of the week. And that is finally the Reds. He forced his way onto the roster. The Reds call up Matt McLain.
Ooh.
Matt McLain is now a Cincinnati Red. And after just blowing everybody away in AAA, Nate, what are your just kind of overarching thoughts about the Reds finally doing the thing and then doing something that I didn't expect, which is say he's going to play shortstop?
Well, with all that buildup, I thought you were talking about the debut of Alan Busenitz. But I guess I'm here for the Matt McLain era. It was awesome watching that news break live on Late Night Reds with Tim this past Sunday. I want to see more of it. I'm glad they did it. I kind of wish they would have done it at home. That would have been fun, but I'm not going to complain when I've been asking for this guy to come up all year long. He was simply knocking the cover off the baseball down in Louisville with a 1.327 OPS. He had nothing left to prove. I hope they don't just stick him at shortstop. I do think it's wise in a lost season potentially lost season. We'll get to that later. Bounce him around the infield, but really, really cool to see. And I will not be fooled by his 250 batting average and 87 OPS plus. I still think he can be serviceable.
After his first at bat in his second game, I tweeted out on the Riverfronts account, he's only batting 250. Did the Reds call him up too soon? And the number of people that responded as if that were a serious tweet was kind of dismaying, actually, a little disappointing. But no, it was fun to watch him. His first big league hit was a double, and it wasn't just a double. It was a single that he busted his way out of the batter's box and got to second ahead of the throw. Just pure hustle. The he's got guns. He has speed. The guy's got wheels. And I love it. I love the fact that he is going to play shortstop. Now, I'm with you. Shortstop's probably not where he ends up. But and David Bell did say, he'll play some second base when India's not there. But the fact of the matter is, it was almost a foregone conclusion that he had to be called up, because the really shoddy play of Cincinnati shortstops has been just outrageous. The 29th worst shortstop combo in baseball. Jose Barrero, until he got removed from the lineup, he started hitting after that and walking. But, was hitting 223 at the time. Kevin Newman, 237. I mean, it just awful defensively. Both have been awful defensively. And so McLain really took advantage of it by his hot start in AAA. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see him now play at home this weekend. And, again, we need to be patient. He's still a kid. He's going to struggle some. He's going to have great moments. But I don't know. I'm thrilled. I'm so happy. Yeah. There's a single tear. If you're not watching on YouTube, there's a single tear rolling down my cheek.
You talked about that first major league hit. That was awesome. The way he scored after that single that was actually a double, Was incredible. Yeah, a base hit that very few other players on the Reds roster and even in the major leagues maybe would have scored on. He got home in the head of the slide. It was fantastic. A notable side note from those games, that game specifically. Do you see how the Reds bullpen just wandered out into those trees out in the center field?
Yes. Yes,
That
that
was
was
one of my
fantastic.
favorite moments of the season. Number one, McLain. Number two, having to send the staffer out to go get those guys and tell them to come back. Legends.
Oh, that was fantastic. If you haven't seen that, go look it up. Yeah, so, okay. Matt McLain is here. He's going to be getting a lot of playing time going forward. Hopefully he won't fall flat on his face like Barrero did and has as a top prospect. Whatever. We're going to find out what he can do. At some point soon, got to bring these other kids up. And let's go ahead and talk about that now since we're on it. At some point soon, I think you have to consider Elly De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand. Quick update on those two. Let me make sure I've got the updated numbers here. Well, I had them. Obviously, McLain was hitting 348, 470, 417 in AAA. I mean, that's outrageous. Just completely outrageous. Christian Encarnacion Strand right now, if my webpage wanted to load, oh boy, this is scintillating audio.
344 average, 371 on base percentage with a ludicrous 720 slugging percentage.
10 home runs
is higher than most people's OPS.
Yeah.
He was one dotting down there. McLain was one dotting. And there's a guy coming up right behind him, Chad, that is a good day at the plate away from also one dotting in that OPS category. And that's our boy Elly.
Yeah. Encarnacion Strand, 10 homers in 21 games. Man, just outrageous. Elly De La Cruz, yeah, after that brutal start, he's just been so hot. 278 average, 369 on base, 567 slugging. And so at some point, those guys are going to force their ways in the conversation as well. I can buy the argument that maybe they're not ready yet. The Reds have more information about whether they're ready or not. But I loved that this week. We saw it happen last year. Elly De La Cruz's plate discipline became a thing, and people started saying, well, I'm not sure he's going to have enough plate discipline, and immediately he started drawing walks. This week it happened again. People were questioning, and I in print, that's what I said in my column last week in the magazine, which is that, okay, there's still some things to work on. His walk rate is not good. He's barely walking. He's striking out too much. And immediately, now, Elly De La Cruz obviously reads everything that I write. He usually comments under the name Pat Magooch. But Elly De La Gooch. I don't know what I'm saying here. But anyway, it's like he decided, all right, I'll show them. Immediately, just starts walking. Time and time again. And it's like he's a comic book superhero, can do anything he wants at any time. Just tell him what you want him to work on. He'll become great at that. It's so easy for him. I'm ready to see those guys. I can see the arguments against them, but the crazy power from Encarnacion Strand and just crazy everything from Elly, I need them in Cincinnati.
Yeah, make it happen soon. If the Reds were smart, if they're savvy at all, they might be smart. There's smart guys in that front office somewhere. I know it. But they're not very savvy. You'd think they would call them up for a home series against the Yankees when they're debuting their City Connect jerseys and sell that place out. But they're probably not going to do that, and we're going to have more Yankees fans there on a Friday night than there are Reds fans.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine, however, though? And I want to talk about that. That was next on the list of things to talk about the City Connect jerseys. Can you imagine if the Reds announced tonight? We recorded this on Thursday, as always. Tonight, Christian Encarnacion Strand and Elly De La Cruz, or even just Elly De La Cruz, are coming to the big leagues tomorrow. They're going to be in the lineup wearing those uniforms against the New York Yankees. I don't know, but I tend to think they'd be awfully close to a sellout.
Yeah.
For the first time since opening day. The City Connect jerseys, briefly, we'll talk about those. Everyone's seen them by this point. Tim talked about them capably on the Sunday show. They're black. Lots of black and some red. What do you think about them, Nate?
Love that drop shadow, don't you?
That's what they said. What if the whole uniform were the drop shadow? That's.
I'm of two minds on them. Are they cool? Yes. I think they're dope as all get out. But I'm still confused about how they connect to the city at all. It seems like a lot of other teams. Now, there's been a lot of really, really bad City Connect jerseys. I do not think these are bad. I think they're really fun. The guys are going to look great in them. It's going to be a fun Friday night at the old ball yard for the rest of the season. But you see a lot of cities. San Diego comes to mind. Miami's were great. These ones that really, one quick glance, you know exactly what they're trying to do. I wish Cincinnati could have done something like that. I am not creative enough to have an idea for what that may have looked like, but given what I've seen, hashtag Baltimore, they're cool. They're fun.
Yeah, Baltimore's were hideous. I mean, I don't know. I'm not still unsure what I think about the Caps, but I think the uniforms look good. And you're right. I think the Reds will look good wearing them, but I don't quite, like you, I don't quite understand. It seems like maybe some teams have forgotten what the connect part of that means in the last however long 3-4 years they've been doing this. And I presume it isn't the teams designing these, but there has to be some sort of a dialogue, you would think. And there's so much that it's just kind of central to Cincinnati that you could add into some of these elements. And there's really not much at all to distinguish it other than just, hey, can we make a black uniform that looks really, really cool? And, okay, they did that, but I don't know. Just connect. Whatever. They will be wearing those this week, as Nate said. A 3-game set against the visiting New York Yankees, followed by a 4-game series next week, beginning on Monday with the dreaded St. Louis Cardinals. The Reds will have a chance to extend their lead in the Central over the last place Cardinals. All right, let's move right along, shall we, Nate? We have not done this yet. It's that time of the week. Can you get us started on the big No, actually, wait. We have some viewer mail questions, don't we, about the debut of Matt McLain? How about that?
Let's go.
The first one comes from Mike Perry. Mike Perry says, given the number of infield prospects making their way to the majors, with many more on the way, Marte, Arroyo, Collier, etc., do you think the Reds will trade one of these guys for a premium outfield prospect, or do you think it's more likely they trade India in the next couple of years? You take it away, Nate.
Well, here's what I will say to that is a premium outfield prospect, the biggest point of emphasis, the biggest need for the team right now. I think that with all of the talent and the athleticism of a lot of these guys, I would probably be more willing to see if the Friedels and the Fraley's of the world are actual fits. If guys like Jose Barrero can have some extended, sustained success, get Jonathan India out there a little bit, get Matt McLain maybe. But guys like Christian Encarnacion Strand who have the power to be to really fit that corner outfield spot. I would do that before I start mortgaging some of these prospects for outfield depth. Now, if you want to trade one or more of those guys for some elite pitching or a whole mess of above average pitching depth, now we're talking. I am far more concerned about the chances of future success of this ball club when it comes down to that pitching staff than I am the offense.
Yeah, I agree. If you're looking to trade, to a position of weakness, pitching's the place. My first thought is this: number one, as always, my perspective is that no one is untouchable on any team. There's a price to be had for everyone. So they should be looking to trade all these guys, not all of them, but be open to trading any of them rather than all of them, any of them in the right package. I think India is probably a decent bet to be headed somewhere at some point. Now, there's no rush on any of these guys. The Reds don't have to make a trade tomorrow for these guys. Now, maybe in this offseason, if they want to try to be somewhat competitive next year. And the only way India is not the odd man out is, I think, if, one or more of McLain, Ellie, and Nueve Marte. If one or more of those don't pan out at all, then you probably have to have India. If if all of them pan out, where do you play India becomes the big question. And I don't want to suggest the Reds need to just cut bait on India or trade him for nothing. But I just struggle to wonder where he's going to play going forward. And because he's not a good defensive second baseman. He's just not. I mean, I hate to say it, but man, the guy's a spark plug. I love having him leading off. I love having him be in the face of the franchise, frankly. He plays with enthusiasm. So I'm going to get called out for saying the Rays need to trade Jonathan. It's not what I'm saying. I love Jonathan India. I'm not sure in my mind where he fits long term in terms of where he actually plays on the field. Nate, you want to take go ahead.
I would rather him figure that out. I'd rather him figure out the defensive thing or a long-term position before I would ever entertain trading him. But what you said is true. Moving on to the next question, though. Joey Gaditza says, with the arrival of McLain, the bulk of Barrero's start should be in center field. An outfield of Fraley, Friedel, and Barrero seems cromulent. If Barrero catches on at the plate, is the clock ticking on him now to thrive in the outfield or become another former obscure Red? Man, do you think that your biggest contribution to this world is that there are now multiple people that use cromulent on a regular basis?
I credit the Simpsons, first of all, and then Garber actually started us saying that on this show. But the next question as well is a similar one from Kyle Kapler. What do you do with Barrero? I would play him in center every day till Fraley's back. Friedel is back. What's your answer here? Yes, by the way, yes, I'm glad that cromulent has entered into the Riverfront's lexicon here.
I would give Jose Barrero at bats a minimum 6 days a week for the rest of the season. If they're not going to try to trot out a winner, they're not going to try to win this terrible division, I would have him somewhere in the outfield, whether it's center field, left field, or right field, every day of the week, see how he holds up defensively, and see if he can figure out something with the bat. Because if he can, awesome. You have a much, much, much higher ceiling. If he can't, whatever, you know that for sure. Cut bait, make room for somebody else. But I don't want to see them keep giving it bats to Kevin Newman when we aren't quite sure what we have with Jose Barrero, who, despite his shortcomings, looks like one of the most elite athletes you've ever seen on the baseball field. He just isn't putting it together. And I think he needs every opportunity to figure that out.
Yeah, no, I think you're, I hadn't thought about it in those terms of letting Barrero play as much, but the difference is Barrero probably not in the long-term plans of this team. Probably not. But he's still young enough that he could be. I don't know if you're listening to what's going on my phone here, but my looks like a double and an RBI. I just need to explain. Sorry, I've been distracted here. I'm a terrible father. I'm not at my son's baseball game tonight. There's a reason for that. I mentioned on the show before, but during the week, I'm working out of town temporarily until he graduates. He's about done, and they can move up here. So I'm 6 hours away essentially until then. So I'm going back and forth, but I couldn't make it back tonight in the middle of the week for his ball game. So he's 1 for 2 with a double, a walk, and an RBI. My wife's FaceTiming me, so that's what's going on. I thought I had it muted, and I clearly didn't. So anyway, whatever. You're going to listen to high school. So, but Barrero playing every day. I don't want to watch it because it's not fun to watch him struggle. But on the other hand, this is the only chance. Well, it's not the only chance. You could keep him around next year and the year after. They've done that for years with guys. But you have at bats now in a season where the Reds are in the mix. They're in third place. They're 3.5 games out in the wild card race. So I don't want to say we're not in a race here, but I don't know what's going on. My son's arguing about something.
Well, I'll take the reins for a minute here.
Take it here. I need to find out what's going on.
I cannot wait for this update. It is time for, speaking of updates, our weekly update of the big three in that starting rotation. Let's start here with Nick Lodolo. He was struggling for his last handful of starts, and then now he is placed on the injured list. After they skipped one of the starts, it looks like he has what's a stress reaction in his tibia. I don't even know what that is. The people I've been talking to have said it's not good, that he's out what it looks like at least 4 weeks, and they're going to reevaluate. I would expect that he's out a decent bit longer than that, maybe all the way up to the All-Star break. But I mean, it just goes to show you how important it is to build depth in your pitching staff and the entire organization. And that didn't happen. So we're wishing Nick all of the luck, a speedy recovery, sending all the happy goodness his way, and we'll continue to monitor that. Hunter Green, he had 1 start since we last spoke, and that was the opener against Colorado. Wasn't great, Bob. 4 innings pitched, 6 runs, 9 hits, 8 Ks, and 1 walk. In his last 3 starts, sorry, my computer just got weird on me. He has 0-2 with a 7.8 ERA. That's 13 earned runs and 15 innings pitched. He's been struggling. I don't think that anybody is or should be surprised by that. It seems like Red's Twitter and especially Red's Facebook is super surprised that Hunter Green is having struggles as someone who's barely older than Ellie De La Cruz in the second major league season. So I took the liberty to pull up some stats real quick, and I wanted to throw out some names of pitchers that have worse numbers than Hunter Green throughout their first 30 or so starts in the major leagues. And those guys are Greg Maddux, Randy Johnson, Bob Gibson, Clayton Kershaw, Zach Greinke, Tom Glavine. You know, the best comp really for the beginning of their career is Max Scherzer, 4.12 ERA at a 1.08 ERA plus. Hunter had a 1.04 ERA plus last year. He's at 102 right now, so he's better than average. Can we just please pump the freaking brakes on this Hunter Green worry and slander? And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I feel like we're going to have to talk about this every week, Nate. It seems like we have to talk about this every week. You know, I always say to be patient with pitchers, and you listed one of the names as the example that I always give, which is go look at the Greg Maddox's first 2 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy's he may be the best pitcher I've ever seen in my life. Well, okay, hold on. Aaron Herring was during my life, so I'm not going to quite say it was Greg Maddux, but it takes a while. Well, it takes a while for it takes a while. It just takes a while for some of these kids, and again, I keep saying it. I don't feel like we shouldn't even be repeating ourselves so much because nothing I've seen from him makes me concerned one bit. I'm way more concerned about Lodolo, who I know you were talking about a moment ago. I'm not concerned about his long-term viability as an actual pitcher because of the bad results. I'm concerned about the injury because he looks like he could be out for a significant period now. And that's just, he needs these starts. The same as Hunter Green needs these starts to learn, to get better, to improve. Nick Lodolo needs the same. And so I'm eager to hear exactly how much time he's going to be out. First, when we were on the podcast last week, we were saying, well, they're skipping the start. They're just going to push it back, give him time to recover a little bit from the soreness. And then it turned into a fracture. I mean, that worries me. It concerns me just because he needs these games. And so I want him back as quickly as possible. How about the third of the big three, Nate?
So it was quite the week for my boy, my guy, Graham Ashcraft. His first start was the opener against Miami. He went 5 2/3, 3 earned runs, 6 hits, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. So was working without his best stuff that day. Still put up a decent start there. In the second start, though, the finale against Colorado, in which the Reds were winning 5-0 until the 5th, when Graham just erupted. Ended up giving up 7 runs on 10 hits, 3 strikeouts, and a walk. The weird thing about that start was that the first 4 innings, he was lights out. Lights out. That cutter was working. He was doing whatever he wanted to. It looked like he was facing minor leaguers up there. There was a play at the end of the 4th where he induced another weak ground ball. Spencer Steer fields it, and underhanded toss to Graham Ashcraft covering first, where he dropped it and let the runner get on. Now, he got the next guy out and got out of the jam, but something, I don't know if it's just in his eyes, the way he reacted, it wasn't anything intense, but I was like, oh man, like that's in his head right now. And then he comes out in the 5th and immediately just loses everything. So it's got me thinking that maybe young Mr. Ashcraft just has some maturity on the mound that he needs to figure out. This is a couple times now where something's happened and he's sort of let it get to him and lost control. So I obviously have never been in a position that these guys are in with the amount of pressure that it must take to be a major league game. So I don't want to act like I'm some kind of expert or anything. But that's just something that I'm keeping an eye on going forward. The stuff is there. He was electric for 4 innings. Colorado's weird. I'm no less enthusiastic about Graham Ashcraft, but these young guys are going to take some lumps, and they've taken them over the last week.
Yeah, that's their kids. right? They're kids. The maturity is part of that. And something we haven't talked as much about that, maybe we should, and I don't know how, I'm sure there is a way, I know there's a way to quantify this, that we're not going to get too deep into the nerd stats, but the defense has been so bad for the Reds this year that it has caused these kid pitchers at various times to have to throw way more pitches than they would have otherwise. And that's just not a good thing. It's just not a good thing. And so I'm just astounded by how truly poor the defense has been. So Nate, which of the kids are you worried about?
None of them. Alan
Exactly.
Busenitz is the only one.
Alan Busenitz. Boosie Buns is what we're going to call him, all right? Oh, good times.
Only the real ones will know that.
Only the real ones know that one. All right, other roster moves, other updates from the week. The Reds, of course, added Brandon Williamson, and they optioned the aforementioned Boosie Buns. They called up Levi Stout. They optioned Kevin Herget to AAA, and then he came back. The biggest transaction of the week. I don't know if you saw this one, Nate. This was today. The Reds signed free agent pitcher Alec Mills, Nate. Alec Mills. The Reds need pitching, so of course you go get Alec Mills. Alec, don't call me Alex Mills. Do you know anything about Alec Mills?
I was told he played for the Cubs once.
He did. He was designated for assignment last year and refused assignment to the minor leagues and became a free agent. And he's 31 years old, and he had not been pitching anywhere. So the Reds literally, they're picking guys up off the scrap heap, which is where Alec Mills was. And then earlier in the week, they signed Brett Kennedy. Brett Kennedy had been playing for the Long Island Ducks, independent team, the Long Island Ducks. This is how, again, we credit Nick Krall for the good things that he's done, absolutely. But this pitching staff got crawled in the offseason. It's ridiculous that a professional sports organization would just refuse to sign people. We're just going to completely punt on an entire season. It just blows my mind. But
listen, I'm gonna zag a little bit on this Alec Mills signing. You just opened my eyes to something here. The guy had a chance to play professionally for the Chicago Cubs and said, "No, I will not." He chose to play for no teams over than play for the Cubs. Maybe he's my favorite player.
Well, that's actually a pretty good point. That's the best resume I've heard from anyone the Reds have signed in recent years. I didn't want to play for the Cubs. Sign him up. All right. There's only one other thing that I want to talk to before we get into viewer mail, Nate. This was fascinating to me, and Doug Gray pointed it out over at redlegnation.com. That Casey Schmidt, he's a Giants rookie, set a new high earlier this week for big league infielders. Okay, he made a throw across the infield at 94.1 miles an hour. That's good. 94.1, throwing it to first, an infielder throwing it to first. That's fantastic. I mean, it's the best. No other big league infielder has had a faster throw across the infield. Where would that rank if you included AAA with Major League Baseball? Do you know the answer to that? Would it be first?
I know it would not be first. That's all.
The answer is it would be eighth. It would only be the eighth fastest throw across the infield. Nate, I'll give you one guess trivia time. Can you name one of the top seven, one of the players who have any of those seven throws faster than the fastest MLB one? Just name one.
Is there one specific comic book superhero that you may be alluding to?
I don't know. He may be one of those seven. You think he is? He is not one of those seven.
Oh.
Ellie De La Cruz is not one of the seven that have thrown harder than that. He's all of them. He has 7 throws across the infield so far, faster than the fastest one in the big leagues all season long. Ellie De La Cruz, is there anything he can't do?
The evidence would say no, there is not.
I really don't think there. We're hyping this kid up way too much. But and I've liked a lot of prospects over the years, and I've hugged a lot of prospects, Hash Brown prospect huggers. But the last player with this kind of talent that came through the Reds organization was Eric Davis. I'm telling you, we're talking mid-'80s. I mean, is there anyone else that you can think of other than maybe Chris Steins? No, not Chris Steins.
I tried to earlier. I put some thought into it. Even like Jay Bruce, we were all fired up about him coming up, but it's not the same. The tools are not the same.
No, I mean Nick Senzel. Everybody knows I was crazy for Nick Senzel. Still am. He's dreamy, but he's not dreamy like Ellie De La Cruz. Senzel may take me to the prom, but I'm leaving with Ellie De La Cruz.
Hey, speaking of guys that you want to go to prom with, Will Benson watched. Yeah. 800 OPS over the last month. Just throwing it out there. We're going to keep an eye on that. We won't spend too much time, but Benson watch is underway.
Absolutely. I love that guy. Boy, he was not good in Cincinnati, but he's going to be good. What if he becomes a player? There's an outfielder. Anyway, whatever. You want to answer some viewer mail questions, Nate?
I do, but I want to mention one thing real quick, and that is this week's weekly Reggie Sanders belongs in the Reds Hall of Fame reminder. We skipped it last week, so we'll throw it out there. Reggie had 21.5 wins above replacement as a Red. Chris Sabo, 17.4. Tom Seaver, 17.3. Mario Soto had 4.3 more, so 25.8. And then Cy Seymour with a 19.8. And if you want to go down a fun rabbit hole, go check on that 1905 Cy Seymour season. Whoa. But what I'm trying to get to here is that of every player in the Reds Hall of Fame with an S as the first letter in their last name, Reggie Sanders is higher than 3 of them. He would immediately become the second best player in the Reds Hall of Fame whose last name starts with S.
I mean, what are we even talking about here?
What are we doing?
Oh, my goodness. And, I mean, yes, understood. He would drop to the third best once Nick Senzel is inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame at some point. But still, one of the 3 best. I love it. Great stat, Nate. Way to cover that one up. By the way, my son's team is winning 8-3 in the top of the 6th. And he didn't get in a fight earlier. They were changing pitchers, and so he walked over to talk to people, and he was being animated as he usually is. Nate, I wrote about him this week. Did you see that?
I did. You got a lot of positive reactions from that.
I got more positive reactions from that newsletter, chaddotson.com, than I've gotten from any that I've written. It wasn't that most viewed, but it was most responded to, so it was good. Just struggling to come to terms with the end of his playing career, but not wanting it to be the end of our baseball connection. All right, viewer mail. We've already asked you a few of those. We've got a few more. These come, as always, from our friends at patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy. That's patreon.com/RiverfrontCincy, where you too can join the team, the family. Seth Shaner. The Reds being quote unquote competitive. First of all, they're 3.5 out in the wild card race. I don't think you have to have quotes around competitive there, Seth. I know where you're going, and I'm with you, but I think we're at the point where they are competitive. While completely punting on 2023 is both exciting and infuriating. Positive reinforcement for Reds management is the worst, isn't it? Nate, take it away.
Yeah, I actually had this an answer to this before I even saw the question as my rant of the week. Why does this franchise have to make it so difficult to be a fan sometimes? As of this recording, as we mentioned, they are tied for 3rd place in that wild card hunt, obviously playing better than any of us expected. But here we are staring down the barrel of the 3rd bullpen game in a week. Kevin Newman still getting more plate appearances than Jose Barrero, who, whether you believe in him or not, at least has the chance to be an above-average major leaguer. The rotation is hilariously in shambles with 0 attempt at acquiring any depth in the offseason, despite every one of us calling for it. And David Bell is out here managing lefty and righty matchups like it's the Game 7 of the flipping World Series. So which is it? Are we trying to win games or not? If we are, why'd they run Graham Ashcraft back out there in the 6th, knowing that he'd already lost the plot? Why are they giving it bats to nobodies? And why haven't they acquired a single league average freaking major league starter? And if they're not trying to win, not trying to compete for the wild card, why aren't they bringing up the young guys to get major league reps when there's no pressure? Why aren't we letting the Barreros of the world, and maybe some others, play a little corner outfield, dance around, see if it sticks? And why are they leaving Why aren't they leaving Jake Fraley in to face lefties when he's hotter than the sun? I don't know, man. It's just this great wall of China-sized divide between trying to field a competitive team or completely committing to the future that is it's driving me crazy. End of rant. Sorry.
I love it. Thank you for that. No, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, as they always have been. This has been probably the most frustrating thing for me of the recent years of the Castellini regime. I think back to 2022. They're coming off that season. Well, first of all, 2021, they end up 4 games above 500. Competitive teams in the pennant race till September, even though management refused to acquire any semblance of a bullpen. It was the worst bullpen in the history of the Reds and one of the worst in the history of the league. And obvious holes that they could have filled that they refused to fill because it was going to cost them money. And it was, again, it's not like we have a chance to compete every year. You have a real opportunity. You're literally in the race. Go out and improve the team. And the best they can do is get Luis Cessa and Justin Wilson, at the trade deadline, and which that helped the bullpen a little, but still, I mean, just roll your chips in if you have a chance to be competitive. It doesn't happen to us. The following year, coming off a team that was in the playoffs, they decided to completely just gut everything, just gut it, and then one of the 2 worst starts in the history of Major League ensues. And so, this year, are they good? No. Are they possibly close to being able to compete for a wild card or division spot? Yes, because, well, the division's awful. Because, you only need to barely be above 500 to be in the wild card mix anyway. It's the most frustrating thing that, anyway, I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating what you just said, and I should have just said nothing. It is very frustrating. I try to ignore the management as much as I can so as to enjoy what's on the field. Next question comes from Joe Farsing. Matt McLain versus Hans Gruber, or John McLain versus Max Scherzer. Who you got? It's a Die Hard reference, Nate. It's a movie, a film, motion picture.
A Christmas movie, some would say.
No, I would not say that. I'm going Matt McLain versus Hans Gruber because Matt McLain is he's just amazing in every way. And have you seen his guns?
Listen, I'll watch Max. I want to watch Max Scherzer fight somebody. I'm in on that. That guy is nuts, and I love it.
I don't know, man. Bruce Willis would go nuts on him. James Urban, who wins the 40-yard dash? Matt McLain or Billy Hamilton? All right, now let me just say this, James. We celebrated your 45th birthday last week on the show. And so I'm going to try to be nice to you here. But how dare you compare anyone to the comic book superhero that was Billy Hamilton? The answer is Billy Hamilton here, right? Come on, right?
Yeah. Or option C, Ellie De La Cruz.
Oh, my goodness, Ellie De La Cruz. Oh, my God. I'm just in love with him. All right, James, happy 45th to James Urban. Hooper Powell, what is more likely to happen? Joey Votto plays in 50 games, Nate getting a barbed wire tattoo on his bicep, or Chad getting a Springsteen patch on his jeans jacket? Hooper knows I like to rock a nice denim jacket. I did in high school. There's no doubt about that. So I think this is a pretty easy answer. It's clearly you getting a tattoo, right?
You're assuming I don't already have one.
Oh, well.
You'd be assuming correctly. No barbed wire anyway. Joey Votto's playing in 50 games. I mean,
yes.
Take that to the bank. Cash that ticket. Go to FanDuel. Figure it out. Joey Votto's playing in 50 games.
Yeah, I get this question occasionally. Is he done? And first of all, I don't want to even think about that. But I don't see any reason to think he's done. I think he's going to come back when he can be productive. Because as we said last week, and I think you and Carlos may have said it the week before, it doesn't do him any good to come back and not be productive if he wants to play past this year. He needs to come back and show that he can be productive. So he just needs to get ready. He will play in 50 games, and I cannot wait. As soon as he's back, I don't care if Christian Encarnacion Strand is playing first base for the Reds and has 42 home runs in his first 12 games. I don't care. To the bench, kid, or to DH at least. But you ain't playing Votto's position when he gets back. Let me just tell you that. Rich Thompson, since the start of the season, I've been advocating that the Reds should trade some of their shortstop prospect depth and, dare I say, Nick Senzel in return for some top-tier outfield and or pitching prospects. Well, we probably should have taken this one earlier. Now with the Reds pitching and outfield depth thinner than ever due to injuries, do you see the Reds GM making a crawl call to other GMs to see if he can swing a deal? Nick Krall needs to be making a call in order to get a haul. Something, Paul.
The GM's one and all.
The riverfront back here next to my wall. I don't know. This is really gone off the rails. This is embarrassing.
Hey, 55 minutes in, that's not bad. It's a new record.
I mean, people are going to be able to. This is going to be public. People are going to be able to see this on YouTube and hear it in their cars. Their kids are probably listening. Oh my goodness!
Officially gone off the rails, and we pretty much already answered that question.
Yes,
the
we
answer
have.
is yes. He should be calling everybody every day to see what's out there.
Yeah.
Rich Ostro says, "P.S. I have a birthday coming up, and I usually do a bike ride to celebrate it. Should I ride 59 miles or 59 kilometers to celebrate it? Geez, these birthday rides are getting harder. What I will say to that, Rich, is I've only ridden long distance on a bicycle one time, and I do not have the appropriate compression shorts. And it hurt me to sit down for 6 days. So whichever is shorter is the one that I recommend."
We're not on the metric system, so we don't know which one it is. Yeah, Rich, thanks for the question. I would say just make sure you ride in the direction of Richmond, Virginia, not away from it. That's what I'm going to say when you do your bike ride. Rich out there in Williamsburg, Virginia, Nate, home of the William and Mary University. No, the College of William and Mary.
All right, I could take him all the way to Richmond. Come on over, Rich. We'll grab a drink.
There you go, to celebrate 59. And before you know it, James Urban's going to catch up with you. He's getting close. James Urban is old. That's what we've learned here in this. Matt McLain's great. Ellie De La Cruz can do anything. James Urban is crazy old, like ridiculous how old he is.
Come here for the cutting edge analysis.
Gosh. Oh, James is going to be mad at me in the Slack channel after this one. So if you want to join us at patreon.com/riverfront, you can come see how much he yells at me. I can't wait. No, James is a good guy. He's much younger than 45. Nate, what else is going on around the riverfront?
Sunday night, Tim and whoever's guest is this week, I'm not sure who he's going to have, we'll be back live talking about our beloved Redlegs. Loving that live format, loving Pat Magooch, which goes without saying. And then Joe and Greg have another episode of the Riverfront Bengals show that just dropped. So go check that out. A lot of fun stuff to talk about in the Bengals universe right now. Joe Burrow having some very pointed comments about how he wants to structure this extension. A great interview with their big free agent signing and Anthony Munoz, team legend. So go check that out. You guys are doing great work.
They are, in fact, doing great work. So absolutely check all them out. Thanks to all of you for listening to and supporting the Riverfront. Nate, any other final thoughts before I wrap this up, though?
Well, I just got a glimpse of myself in a mirror across the room, and I'm thinking that I'm looking pretty handsome today. I had a good hair day.
Definitely a good hair day.
But about the Reds, no, not really.
All right.
Beat the Yankees. The Reds
beat the Yankees, stay out of last place. That's really all I'm asking. It's not too much to ask. Thanks to all of you for listening. Now, listen, here's what I want to ask you this week. We always ask you to subscribe to the show on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app, to support us at Patreon if you can, if you have a couple bucks to join the family. But here's your charge this week. Tell your friends about us. Okay, that's the real way to grow a podcast. A recommendation, a trusted recommendation from a friend. So tell your friends about us. But as I've often said, if you like us, talk about us. If you don't like us, keep your mouth shut. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, at Riverfront Cincy on all those platforms. And just another quick thank you to the Patreon family. They make it possible for us to do this show every single week. And really, we have so much fun doing it that I really appreciate it. That's all for this week. Shout out to Adam Dunn. Shouts to Lisa Alberto and Wayne Crinchicki. Oh, yeah. And Eli Cash. Shout outs to Elmer Descends. Shout outs to Nate Dotson and to Chris Steins. This is Chad Dotson saying, so long, everyone.